I am Elle Penelope, author of epic fantasy and paranormal romance, and welcome to My Imaginary Friends, a look behind the scenes of an author mapping the worlds in my head and making them a reality. Hello friends, today is Saturday, May 14th, 2022, and this is episode 170 of My Imaginary Friends. I'm Leslie. So this week's best thing is that I am drafting. I'm doing the first draft, the fast draft of my Black Towns book, my second book on my Orbit contract, and I started writing words on Tuesday. I wrote Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and I got 10,546 words in those days. I did not write Friday. I'm planning to write today, and we'll see how tomorrow goes. So I think that a goal of between 10 and 12,000 words a week will be doable and not feel like I'm pushing too hard, at least if it continues to go the way this week went. I was going for a minimum of 3,000 words a day, and I got above that basically every day. So how it worked is I write in scenes, not really just word count, but the word count lets me know if I need to push and do another scene. So like one day I had written 2 scenes and I had like 2,200 words. So I was like, oh, well, I need 3,000 today, so I'm going to actually draft the next scene. And sometimes that is easier said than done. Sometimes it took a long time to warm up. It's the first draft of this book. I've worked on this book for a long time, for the past 6 months, but getting words on the page is a different story than researching or plotting. And sometimes I would carefully plan out each scene before I wrote it. And sometimes I would just use the bullet point in my outline and start writing. And it just depends on mood and, other things that are hard to quantify. But I'm very pleased with my progress. I'm pleased with the 10,000 words. And obviously, if I would have written on Friday, it would have been more. But I also have to balance it with giving myself grace and honoring my energy levels and my health and all of that. So these words were, I want to say easily accomplished, but it wasn't difficult to get them. And so it seems like a very manageable pace that I can continue and keep up, which is the most important thing. I really would love to get the first fast draft done by the end of the month. But if I'm only doing 10 to 12,000 words a week, that's not really realistic. So I don't want to up the weekly goal. So we'll keep it as is, and we'll see if I exceed my numbers. Then I'll be on track for that, potentially. I'm going to a writer's retreat at the end of this month, and my thinking was, depending on my momentum at that point, take that whole week and focus on Savage City. Because obviously, well, not obviously, but probably obviously, I've not been doing 2 writing sessions a day. I've been focusing on this one and getting this one done. And so I'm thinking, get a big chunk of this, take a whole week, focus on that one. I don't know if I can get the whole thing done in a week, but get as far as I can. So maybe do like 3 weeks, 1 week. That could be interesting. Nothing else has worked, so I'm just going to keep throwing things out there and seeing what happens. But yeah, super happy. I also realized that the structure that I was trying to use, I generally structure my books using Save the Cat as a start. Well, that's not necessarily true. I kind of go back and forth between a couple of different structure systems. Often Save the Cat comes first, but then I'll get stuck at a beat that I don't know exactly what it is and move on to something else, a different type of structure or plotting system. And so I was running this outline through Save the Cat, and I got stuck at Debate, which is like the 3rd plot point of 11. And I'm still not exactly sure what the rest of them are. But I was like, maybe this book is not a Save the Cat book. Every book doesn't cleanly fit into every structure. Sometimes the structures do feel restrictive. I think that structure is extremely helpful for me personally, and to get my mind in the right place and to make sure my story isn't veering off wildly. But there are definitely times when it doesn't fit, and forcing it to fit is not the right choice. So I needed fewer plot points. At one point I was like, should I go to like a John Truby, which is like 22 points? And I was like, no, if I can't get 11, I'm not going to get 22. So let me go back down to 7. And so I went back to the Dan Wells, the 7 plot point system, which is often where I also start. I think I do usually kind of start there and then go back and forth between that and Save the Cat. And that is very close to the K.M. Weiland method. And I mentioned going back to those structure books last week. So if I only have 7 points, and those feel doable, they feel like they're the guideposts that will lead me from point A to B to C, so that I feel like the story is well structured, it's solid, it's still going to be a little lopsided in terms of, a hero's journey type of situation because of what I talked about last week. But I do feel like the 7 points, I was able to look at those, get those straight in my mind and feel like, okay, I'm on the right track and I'm going to just write it the way it is. And my editor will tell me if it's vastly lopsided or, once I get some space from it, beta readers, people like that. But I'm going to really trust my editor to tell me if this book feels off kilter when she reads it. I think I've got it to a good place. And so, yeah, I'm just going to look forward to keep writing. But determining which system you use is one of those things that it feels just very intuitive. Like, okay, this one's not working. Let me go pick another craft book on my shelf and see what they have to say. See what they have to say about the various plot points, what they're calling them, the sections of the story, the acts. My friend was like, okay, what act are you in? Have you gotten to act 2 yet? And I'm like, I'm not 100% sure where act 2 is going to start in this book. There are a couple of options. And I think each subplot generally will have its own act structure. And usually you have like the overarching plot has the act structure and then subplots. And often subplots don't hit every beat because there's not enough time, or they'll hit the beat off screen, off page. And so I was like, well, I know this character's arc has these plot points. I don't know how that relates to the larger story arc. And sometimes that's just a revision thing. Sometimes it could be a red flag. And I think the work I've been doing the past couple of weeks has been trying to reassure myself that it's not a red flag. I don't have something wildly off. But if it's not a red flag, it could just be that plotting system is not quite the right thing for the story that you're trying to tell. And maybe the story just needs more room to breathe. It's not going to fit as cleanly. Now, also, the downside of that is that commercial genre fiction kind of relies on structure and expectations. And so there is a danger that even if the story is not going off the rails, that because you're doing something so different, it's going to feel off to the reader. And it's not going to meet the reader expectations of commercial genre fiction. And that's another thing that I can't figure out yet. Either I'm too close to it or I don't have enough information because I'm just in the first draft stage and it's something that's going to happen in revision. So I kind of get as close as I can and do the best that I can at the beginning. And then I write and know I'm going to revise it and knowing that I'm going to get outside feedback on it to help me revise it. I will let the rest of it, kind of be figured out in later stages. I can't do everything up front. So all that being said, I still feel very good about it. I'm having good energy with it. Finding the voice, figuring out the characters, discovering things. I was listening to, I think it was Joanna Penn, her podcast, The Creative Pen. And there was someone on talking about pantsing. And even though I am a committed plotter, I love plotting, I also resonate a lot when I hear pantsers talk about what they do. So a lot of times people who write by the seat of their pants, they feel like if they know everything that's going to happen, the story, there's nothing to discover in the story. They're bored by the time they have to write it. So they need to have that discovery. And to some degree that's true with me too, except my discovery is the in-between points of the plot. Like I have this 7-page outline and that's a lot of detail, but I still have so much room to discover and change things and find out these wonderful gifts and surprises throughout the story. And that's very much how a discovery writer works. It's just that for me, without the 7-page outline, that all of that discovery is stressful. Like I want a certain amount of discovery. It's like when you're hiking and you have the trail color and every few yards or feet or whatever, there is the marking on a tree that's like, oh, you're still on the right track. You're on the red trail. You didn't get off on the white one. But in between that, you don't have to follow the path. You can move around, but to a certain degree. But you're always going to have those posts that let you know that you haven't gotten lost. Whereas my husband will go hiking, he'll go with the dog, and 3 hours later he comes home, he's like, oh, we got lost again. This happens all the time. Always getting lost in the woods, always getting lost in the parks on these trails because he just wanders away, takes a deer trail and has no idea where he is. And 3 miles later, finds a way back somehow. But that doesn't bother him. Like, he's having an adventure. That would drive me nuts. And on the occasion when I've been with him and have gotten lost, the one time that's happened while I was there, I mean, yes, it was an adventure. We talk about it, we tell stories about it, but I don't want to do that all the time, I like being on the path. So even though I'm on the path, I still find wonderful surprises and things that I did not expect, and I'm willing to change the path to accommodate those if need be. I also cast my main characters. I don't always find actors or models or just images of people to do a cast. I have the last couple of books though, but yeah, this time I did, and so I downloaded the pictures of these actors and I put them into my character sheet, and that's kind of helpful too. So one time, I got up in the morning to write at 8 o'clock like normal, but I wasn't ready to get the words down. I was procrastinating a little bit. And so I was like, I think I'll try to find the right actor for my character. And yeah, just kind of looking through lists of Black actors. A lot of times I will use models. Also, I'll just kind of type in, Black models or whatever. Black male models. But yeah, I found some actors. I might do a Pinterest or like an aesthetic for this at some point in time. I'm kind of going back and forth between the actresses for my Jane. I found 2 different actresses, and either one could work, I think. And it's kind of like, okay, what does work? I mean, is it just how they look? It's sort of like things I've seen them in and the way that they've acted, or a particular character that I saw them play that has a similar energy to this character. And sometimes it's just the way they look, and sometimes it's having seen them do something specific that I can really imagine them in this role. So that's kind of cool. So stay tuned to Instagram to that. I might do that. I mean, this book is so far away. I feel like years and years away from being published. So no point in posting an aesthetic right now. But it's a behind the scenes thing. Maybe my newsletter. I don't know. Maybe I'll put it somewhere. Also, I have been trying the software Storyist to write this book in. Now, I am a Scrivener stan. Scrivener is the writing software that I use, and I've been using it for many, many years. But I do have some issues with Scrivener. Like, it's fine. It works. It works very well. It's got lots of features, an overwhelming number of features, to the point where some people can't use it. They're afraid of Scrivener, and I totally understand why. My issues aren't in that vein. Like, I've spent enough years learning how to use it. I've got the time on task. A lot of investment in learning how to use Scrivener. It's something that I have to figure out how to articulate better, but it's the way that it handles text. Every document seems to have a different default text setup. I spend a lot of time doing my formatting and styles of the font and the color and different styles, and I'm never happy with how it works. I have to actually sit down and write this out for it to make sense to people, because I know that it doesn't. But it's a huge pet peeve of mine, and I'm big into fonts and typography and styles, so it's just a constant frustration. And I've tried other things, and I had Storyist on my computer before, and I upgraded it, and so I got a new free trial. I think it's a 2-week free trial. And so I did the tutorial again, and it's very similar to Scrivener, except it's very much stripped down. So imagine, the basics of Scrivener, the things that I like about it, that you can write each scene in individual kind of documents that you can then reorder. You can see them all on the left side. You can easily access them. They've got the character sheets and the setting sheets. They've got a few other things that Scrivener doesn't have. And I've been compiling a list as I've been using it for this project of the pros and cons and the differences. So I'll go through these really quickly, and I might at some point do a video once feel like I've mastered Storyist. But in Storyist, there's no labels for the different POVs, and people use labels in Scrivener. It's very customizable. Storyist is less customizable, which makes it simpler. In Storyist, you can't see each scene completely independently. Like, it's always going to be, you're looking at the whole document. You can navigate to the scene and you can actually move them around independently. But I like to see, like, I'm just at this scene and I get to the end, that's it. I don't see the next one. There's no revision colors, there's no colors in the binder, there's no scene snapshots. So I usually do a backup of each scene every day that I work on it. You can't customize all the icons, you can't customize the templates, and there's no tables or columns. But in the pro column, there's better scene card templating, and that's going to get really in the weeds, but better font and formatting handling, more attractive documents, and snippets for frequently used text. And I have to look and see if Scrivener has this. I'm not aware of it having it, but there's plenty of features of Scrivener that I don't use. But you can have like a little shortcut for, it comes with like he said, she said, with quotes, like commonly used text. And since this book and the next book probably, I'm going to be using accents, like accent aigu, accent grave for certain words, having a shortcut for that word so I don't always have to type the code for the accent. Like accents, one of them is really easy, but one of them, you hold down the E for 1 second and you'll get a little pop-up and you can choose which accent you want. Anyway, having a shortcut for this, the specific word that I use over and over that has the accent is going to be very nice. And so none of the things that it doesn't have are big enough issues for me that it completely limits, my ability to successfully and happily use it. I mean, so far, it's doing what I need to do, and it's actually nice that it's, simpler than Scrivener. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm happy with my trial. I'm still in the free trial, but I will pay for it. I think it's $59. And the scene card templating I really like, but I'm not going to go too deep into it here because it's very niche. So let me know if you want more information on that. And finally, in other completely nerding out news, I started watching all of these videos on YouTube on the program Notion and ClickUp, which I use both of them. So ClickUp is what I use for my project management, and Notion I use it more for note-taking. There is some crossover in functionality, and there are things that are very different. And people have built entire businesses on Notion and Notion templates. I have a Notion template for authors, for publication database, for keeping track of all of your publications, your versions of your books and ISBNs and all the info. I'll link to that if you are interested in that. Because and that's free. I just make the template for free. I did a video on it. I've been using Notion for a long time. I've been using ClickUp for a long time. I mentioned a few weeks or months ago about using Asana, which is another project management tool, to split them up. And now I'm back to putting them back together because I figured out a way to do it that makes more sense to me. But I fell down a rabbit hole of Second Brain, which if you Google Second Brain, there's like a course, like some guy on YouTube who, I think I watched some of his videos, seems to have come up with this and sells a course on it, and it's a big thing, and people talk about it, and the different software you can use. You don't have to use Notion for it, but Notion seems uniquely set up or uniquely able to handle this. And the whole idea is you don't have to remember everything. Like, collect all of the things that you come across that might be of interest into one kind of database. So I take a lot of notes on things. I'll read an article, I'll copy a quote out of it or summarize some ideas, and I keep them in different places. I have a program called BB Edit, which is just text files. And the cool thing about it is you don't have to save the file. So if you close BB Edit and you reopen it, and this is a setting you can turn on, all of your untitled, unsaved files show up again. So if I just need a quick note, it's always open. I just go make a new one and type in the note. And then later on, I'll deal with, where do I save it? How do I categorize this? What kind of information is this? Because sometimes when you're just trying to make a quick note, you don't know those things. But I also use Google Keep, and I have notes in Notion, and I have notes in a variety of other places, notebooks and tablets and Remarkable, and it's a mess. So the idea that I took away from this Second Brain research is I can have that all organized in one place, and not have to necessarily categorize it immediately. I can still make my note quickly and then later on go on and categorize it, but they're all in this one database. And so over the past couple of days, I've been setting that up. And everything from, I saw a cool meme on Twitter. It had been posted to Facebook, and I found it on Twitter, and it was all of these like old Black people sayings. And since I'm writing a book that takes place in the 20s, in the South with Black people, incorporating some of these sayings, like my grandmother used to say that. So obviously it's something that she heard in her youth, and I could incorporate some of that into my book. I wanted to save that. I watched a video about marketing, and I made some notes on it in a text file. I want to be able to find them again. A lot of times I make those notes and I have no idea where I put them, or there's not an easy way to kind of organize them. I'd started like a junior version of this with the 1820s story that I was working on because it required a lot of research. When I wrote The Monsters We Defy, I don't know how I was doing the research. I was doing it in Scrivener, actually. I do remember now. I made like a Scrivener story Bible, and I would categorize things like, entertainment, soldiers, war, like DC history. I had all of this research that I would just put into different files in Scrivener, but it had to be in Scrivener to get them. And if I was doing research somewhere else, if I was out and about and I came across an interesting piece of information, while you can put Scrivener on your phone, it's just not the easiest thing to just open it up and like type in your note. So that's how I saved all my research, and that was kind of level 0. And so then with this book's research, with the Black Towns book, another historical, lots and lots of research on different things, I started using Notion, and I just created a simple database of notes. So it would just be like the note, it had a title, it had a link to where, if it was an article online that I got it, most of these are articles online, but some of them are books, and then I would write the notes, and I would give it tags, I would categorize it. So like in this book, some of that has to do with, towns and levees, dams, mythology, like all of the different kinds of things that it relates to. So I could hopefully find a note that I had made. But I discovered that there was a lot of crossover between the research I was doing for the Black Town story and the research that I was doing for the 1800s project. There's a lot of crossover in concepts, because when you're dealing with Black history in America, it's kind of all together. So even though these are different stories, different books, there's a lot of cross research. So, and not just that, like everything, like I'm always making notes on things and trying to find some place to save it. So this sort of second brain in Notion, I just got really excited, and I'm really happy with it so far. And even like yesterday, we bought a new couch, and I was like, I need a household items database to put in the information, and then like the warranty and the protection plan, the stuff. And we had gotten a refrigerator a few months ago. So all that stuff is just, it kind of relies on me searching through my email or a physical file of the receipts and all that stuff. I can put it in one place in Notion, in one database, and it can be there. So like, I'm super excited about this. This is my catnip: organization and linking things and just information capture. Because one of my personality traits is being high input, I'm always taking in lots of information, and I don't necessarily know what I'm going to need it for, or if I'm ever going to need it. I'm just interested in these things. Like I just read an article, just a random article about Black Lives Matter, and had some information that I wanted to keep and be able to find again. So it goes into the second brain database. So that's something I'm excited about. I can imagine not everyone else could be excited about that. But if you have one place to capture not my research notes for my writing and just life and philosophy stuff and, exercise routines that I might find, like whatever it is that I've input into my brain, I can store it here and be good to go and not have to worry about my horrible memory. And like, what file did I put that in? Was it on my phone? Was it here? Was it here? Did I write it down? So I'm going to be trying to wrangle over time, wrangle all of my various notes and things that are in different places into this in the coming lifetime, probably. So that is it for me. Coming week, I want to get between 10 and 12,000 words in the Black Towns manuscript. And that's basically it. I've got some marketing stuff I want to do, continue watching this course that I bought and getting ready to implement that. So other stuff is happening too, but I'm just going to focus on getting the writing done and tweaking my scheduling, which is happening in ClickUp, which I did not talk about because I'm not going to brain dump everything onto you today, but also exciting things there, and trying to, and just, sometimes when it starts to click and you're like, oh, I can do it this way and it will work. It feels great. So I will talk to you next week, and I hope that you have a wonderful week. For episode show notes and to sign up for the Footnotes newsletter and get the show notes in your inbox, go to myimaginaryfriendshow.com. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and you can watch the video episodes on YouTube. You can email me at podcast@lpenelope.com, and I would really appreciate a rating or review to help support the show. My Imaginary Friends is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. For more fantastic podcasts, go to frolic.media/podcasts.